Leah here from MagicByLeah.com, and in this video I'm going to show you how to cover a pen with a polymer clay cane. Since we're continuing our smiley face project, we're using two big pens. We have pliers to remove the ink, a super slicer to cut the cane, and here I have the two smiley face canes from the last video. It's nice and hard because I just took it out of the refrigerator. I'm also working on baking paper because this way I won't ruin my glass sculpting surface. I'm going to use the smaller cane because this way I'll be able to get more smiley faces on the pen. Even though it's cold and easier to slice, it still distorts a little. Notice how it got a little even on the end? So what I'm going to do is cut and roll. This way, if one part flattens, I roll away from it and then it's another part. I know that some people prefer to use a rolling method when cutting each one. I personally find that too tedious. I'm trying to get these slices thin so that the pen won't be bulging, but at the same time we don't want it too thin because we still need to have something to grip. I'm going to cut about, 30 to 40 slices. I once counted how many it takes to cover a pen, but it changes because it depends on the diameter of your cane and the thickness of the slices that you cut. Okay, now this one right here I kind of missed. Notice I cut off part of it. I saved these because at the end you may have to fill in some small spaces, and the badly cut canes will do for that. Okay, we seem to have about 40 slices, but we are covering two pens, so I'm going to keep going. Yeah. The next step is to remove the ink from the pen because you don't want that to leak when you bake it. So I'm going to use pliers to just grip the front and then with a slight twisting motion, pull it out. Save that for later. And now we have a pen that we're ready to cover. Sometimes when you pull it out, the front gets loose, so just push that back in. Now, at this point, you can randomly attach the slices. I like to go with a bit of a circular pattern. Notice that I have room for about 3. And I just squeeze them to the pen slightly. When I roll it, they will attach. And then I like to offset this pattern. So notice I have the smiley in between the two. You can have the smiles facing in any direction. Remember, it's what you like. I am leaving some gaps because when you roll it, the smiles will spread, so you want to give them room. You don't want to wind up with something too tight so that when you roll it, you have air bubbles that are just popping all over the place. If the cane slices start falling off, just squeeze it. For now, we're going to roll them all into place later, but squeezing it will help them grip the pen better. I like to stop just shy of the tip because when you roll it out, the clay will start to move, and I like to add the last piece at the end. Alright, this is my glass working surface, and I really like this for rolling out canes because it'll make it very smooth. So just take the pen and with very soft pressure, start going back and forth. If you put too much pressure in the beginning, the smiley faces are going to come off. So just very soft pressure up and down, and you'll notice the smiley faces start to spread out and grab onto each other. Once it looks like the entire pen surface is covered, you can start putting more pressure. Just make sure it's even, and that will start getting rid of all these little gaps that you see. Alright, here we go. Notice the pen is nice and smoothed out. I know there's a glare, but you can see that most of the gaps are gone and the smileys all stretched to fit each other. The next thing I like to do is take care of the top. Notice I purposely ended right before the top. I like to take a small cane and put it right there. And then use my makeshift rolling pin, which is the inkwell of a pen, and just smooth it in right there. And that way you have a nice top to the pen. Now here you'll notice I have a slight overlap between the top that I added and the cane from the actual pen. I like to just cut off the excess, and that will give me a nice smooth transition. And then we have the bottom. The bottom of the pen tapers, but I like to make it look relatively uniform. So I'll add the cane here and try to keep the thickness similar to the rest of the pen. What I'm going to do now is, with pressure towards the front, I'll roll it so that the canes at the bottom grow towards the tip and just fill up that space. If it looks like there's not enough, this is where you can take your badly cut canes and just fill them in. Now for the fun part, you want to make sure that the bottom is nice and smooth so you can insert the inkwell when it's done baking. This is where I take my X-Acto blade and I just cut along the tip of the pen, giving me a nice edge. And then using my fingers, I'll make sure the clay rolls over. Now, in order to do this properly, you'll notice that there's way too much clay and the inkwell won't be able to go in. So I take the tip of the X-Acto knife and just cut the hole out. And this will ensure that I don't crack the pen when I try to put the ink in later. And that's it. So here we have the first style of covering a pen with a clay cane. I like this because it's relatively simple. What I don't like about it is that sometimes the cane distorts. So notice the smiley faces are looking like hexagons. For this, it looks pretty cute, but if you have a design that you don't want to distort, it can be a problem. Here's another method I like to use for covering a polymer clay cane, especially when you have something cute like the smiley faces here. I chose black because that's the outside color of the cane, and I roll it out on the number 4 setting on my pasta machine. You can go thicker or thinner depending on what you want for your pen. I'll cut the ends to the length of the pen and then cut one side so that we can measure where to roll. You want to take the pen and then use your fingers to slide across and seal the clay to the pen, making sure you don't trap any air bubbles. Work your way around. So you smooth and roll, smooth and roll. If you have air bubbles, they will expand in the oven and that can cause the pen to crack, which you don't want. When you're almost at the end, you want to roll it to see how much you need and then roll it back. The clay will have left a mark letting you know where to cut, and I like to cut just inside that mark so there's no overlap. So notice that it's just barely enough, and I'm using the same method of squeezing the air out and attaching it to the pen. And then I'll use my inkwell rolling pin to smooth the ends together. Again, this is to make sure we don't trap air bubbles. Then I'll roll it out on my work surface to get the whole thing smooth. I'll use my X-Acto blade to cut off any excess clay in the front and then push the clay over so that I get a nice rounded tip. And once again, I'll use the X-Acto blade to cut out the inside so that I have where to insert the inkwell once it's baked. For the top of the pen, I like to smooth the clay up and then use the inkwell to smooth it out. That's one option. The other option is to cut off that top clay and then take one of your cane slices and just blend it into the top. Alright, so now that we have the clay on the pen, you can choose to do a smiley face pattern where it doesn't cover the entire pen, but instead you just have your smiley faces bulging out. So you can do dots going down, you can do them in a spiral. I like the spiral effect, so let's do that for this pen. Alright, so notice the smiley faces are just sitting on the pen, they're not rolled in. Now here's the fun part. I'm not going to smooth them all the way in. Instead, I'm going to roll it just enough to make sure they don't come off. And then it'll be like bumpy smileys on the pen, which I think is a very cool effect. Start by lightly rolling it. Notice I'm putting enough pressure to seal the smiley faces, but not enough to perfectly smooth them out. You can also do this in your hands. Now look at that cool effect. You have the smileys just bulging out of the pen, but they're nice and secure so they don't come off. I always like to double check the bottom because every time you roll, you push a little more clay to the front. And if you don't fix it, you'll have problems when it comes to inserting the inkwell. It's easier to cut and less risky when it's still raw. So once again, just cut out the excess with an X-Acto knife. And there we have it. So here we have our 2 pens. Now I'm going to bake them according to the manufacturer directions, and then we'll set up the base. For a detailed list of supplies used in this project, along with answers to your specific questions, visit my website, MagicByLeah.com, or click the link in the description. I will be uploading new videos regularly, so be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel, but for even more bonus tutorials, tips, and so much more, join my email newsletter by clicking the link in the description or visiting my website, MagicByLeah.com.